Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sherlonda Adkins. I am a nationally board certified physician assistant specializing in psychiatry, owner and founder of Psych My Way, which is a telepsych practice in South Carolina. I talk a lot about travel and the effects of travel on our brain, which in turn our mental health. I personally travel for mental health reasons and didn't even realize it that much until the pandemic, when our travel came to a screeching halt. But today, a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Number one, I get questions so many times from people about traveling. How do you plan a trip? How do you even determine where you want to go? I mean, look at the world, it's huge. So when you say, I want to take a trip, where do you even start? And then also give you a couple of tips when you're planning your trip that you don't want to forget. So first of all, going back to the brain, mental health, and how we behave as humans, there's a such thing called habituation, which basically means that even the most exciting things that happen to us in our lives, like getting married and having a child, getting a new job, getting a raise, moving to a new location, while all of those things are fun and exciting, after a while that excitement just kind of dwindles, and then you find yourself just in regular life, living a good life possibly, but just not super exciting. And that's where travel comes in. It kind of helps to break up that monotony, so where that habituation has set in. You have neurotransmitters in your brain. We have dopamine receptors, we have GABA receptors. Dopamine is kind of like your pleasure and reward neurotransmitter, so the thing that kind of gets you excited, that makes you happy, that pleasure seeking activity is what we do to try to get more dopamine flowing in our brains. And then likewise, sometimes we go through life and we experience anxiety, so we try to do things that self-calm us. That could be taking a walk, doing exercise, maybe even taking a nap, and for some people, travel as a way of self-calming. So that's my spiel on at least part of it on travel and the brain. And as promised, a few tips for travel that I would recommend if you are traveling internationally. We've seen 19 countries, I believe, 19 and counting. And one of the things that we learned the hard way is make sure that whatever country you're going to, you have checked to make sure that if there are any entrance documents or any travel visas, that you have those. I remember we were in line. We had arrived in, I believe it was Brazil, and we were, well, actually, I take it back. We were in line to board our flight to Brazil, and we were thinking, was there a visa we were supposed to have? And it was a really scary feeling at that moment, in the pit of my stomach. I'm thinking oh my gosh, don't tell me we've done all of this, planned this trip, took time off from work, purchased these tickets, and we're not going to be able to go. So we're frantically looking it up online. And at that particular time, our president had, however they do it, had I forgot what they call it, but had pretty much had an agreement with Brazil at the time where we didn't need any visas. There was kind of like this, we could travel freely between, there, and they could travel here. So that was fine. But another example that happened a couple of years ago, we were in Australia, and we decided while we were in Australia that we were going to add Fiji onto the trip. So it was Australia and New Zealand that we already had booked, and then we decided that we were going to go to Fiji. And that's actually my third tip. I'm kind of jumping ahead. But when we were at the airport in Australia getting ready to board our flight to New Zealand, they called us up. They said our name over the intercom and called us and said, hey, we need to see your return flights, because in order to enter New Zealand, you have to have proof of exiting the country as well. So we did not know that, did not read that. No one had told us that, because our plan, we were just kind of doing like a fly by the seat of your pants type trip where we'll just kind of go how the wind leads us. So we spent some time in Australia. We were going to fly to New Zealand and stay there for, you know, however many days we felt like we needed to. And then from there, we were going to go to Fiji. So we had to quickly go ahead and start purchasing flights, like right there in the airport before we could board that flight to New Zealand. So we had to figure out all of a sudden, now, how long do we plan on staying in New Zealand? When do we plan on going to Fiji? And when you're rushed, that's not the best time to purchase flights. I mean, how much time did we have to make sure we were getting a deal? But, you know, we didn't know, but now we know. And so the third tip, combining trips, I highly recommend that. And what I usually do, no joke, is really just look at the globe or look at a map, and wherever our main destination is, we'll take a look and see, well, what's close to that? Is there some other place that we would like to see while we're there? That's how we ended up going to Argentina. So we had a trip booked for Brazil, and then actually, you know, Argentina is very close to Brazil. So we checked the flights and they were cheaper than if we decided later to go to Argentina. So we were like, you know what, while we're on this side of the world, why don't we go for it? And as I mentioned, that's what happened with us when we went to Australia. We were planning, so here's Australia. So we were on the east side of Australia. And so we knew that we had planned to go to New Zealand. And I was looking at the map and I said, oh my gosh, look how close we are to Fiji. Fiji's right here. So Australia's here. Here's New Zealand. So there's the North Island and the South Island of New Zealand. And then there's Fiji. Do you know how expensive it would be to fly from Charleston, South Carolina to Fiji on a completely different occasion? So expensive that it was not on our bucket list. So that's why we decided to add that into our trip. So that is my third recommendation. I think that was 3. So entrance documents, combining trips. Oh, I did leave one out. So the real true third recommendation would be checking and seeing what is included in your hotel stay. So parking, Wi-Fi, shuttle, things that you sometimes take for granted can actually be extra expenses. So always check it out. On the flip side, there may be some extra benefits that you did not consider. If you're going to a beach location, sometimes your hotel may actually offer activities or equipment that's included in your stay. Like you may have access to paddleboarding equipment or access to kayaking. So always double check and see what's included. If your breakfast is included, that's nice. That's one less expense that you have to bear. Or maybe even there's a happy hour that's included in the evening. So hopefully these were some good tips. If you would like to hear more, make sure you subscribe, because I will be sending out more. And mental health is key. I'll be talking more about how mental health and travel and the brain, all of that's related. All right. See you guys later. Bye.